have experienced all across the country, and some people drill for, and perhaps everybody should drill for, because here we are. So again, as Sade pointed out, I'll just say, as Sade pointed out, the people have been advised to stay in place. They're letting the police officers
All right, guys, welcome to my channel, D Lady Diana. I'm gonna go over this. Today was a crazy day in Midtown, New York City, specifically at 345 Park Avenue and 52nd, 53rd Street. I don't know what's going on in that building, what's on the 33rd floor, but an active shooter literally walked in with his regular work, regular attire, looked like a regular person. He wasn't like armed with any particular gear. He did have a big machine gun in his hand and casually walked into the building, shot an officer who was working as an off-duty security guard at the building. He shot that officer. Officer is now in the hospital. Went straight into the building, went up to the 33rd floor. No one could have predicted what would have happened next. He just like started shooting and causing chaos all over the place. Police trying to go upstairs and catch up to him. They had him cornered. He, offed his own self. And this is what we're in right now. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see, but I'm going to go in, start from the beginning so you guys can see the shooter. Let's see what's going on. Um, it's Let's see what the people are saying. That's what we can do as well. The chat has been going crazy. Yes, this was on the 32nd floor. This is what happened when you don't allow people to defend themselves. I don't know what that's about, but give us the right to defend ourselves and the Second Amendment right to carry arms. This type of stuff will stop. I understand, but if we all had, I don't know. Let's just.
Sir, if you're trying to go that way, you can't go that way. You have to go that way, okay? You have to go that way. You can't go this way. You can't go this way. You gotta go that way. Guys, if you're trying to get through here, you cannot. You have to go that way.
I don't know, guys, but the shooter offed himself. It's tragic that any of this even had to happen. But imagine going to work and not being able to leave the building. Okay, this is how it is in Midtown Manhattan. Tragic incident today. Okay, guys, what you're looking at here is the active shooting that happened in Midtown today. A shooter walked into the building at about 3:45 p.m., walked in with full machine gun in hand, walked straight to the first floor, shot an officer, NYPD, who was actually off duty working as a security guard for the building. I don't know what's on the 33rd floor, but the shooter managed to get past the first floor, by shooting the NYPD officer. So one officer is down. He gets up to the 33rd floor. What's on the 33rd floor? I looked, and there's NFL, there's KPMG. I'm not sure exactly what that is. And someone mentioned BlackRock. I'm not sure. Someone please confirm if these are the companies that's on the 33rd floor at 345 Park Avenue in Manhattan. So the shooter walks in and he starts shooting everyone. I don't know if this guy had a personal vendetta or he got fired from the job or what his issue is, or if he's connected to the incidents that happened in Nevada, because apparently his license plate was from Nevada as well. And so I don't know if all of these things are connected, but if they are, that could be a logical reason why he went into the building and did this. He had a plan, and these plans usually don't end well. He unalived himself as a way out. Can you believe this? He went and caused all this tragedy to off his own self. Police were on the scene right away. As soon as he walked in the building, I saw at least 6 to 7 officers going in as well. Unfortunately, on the 33rd floor, he shot some people, and EMT was not able to get to the scene right away because, they have to get clearance and make sure the scene is safe from the active shooter. But NRG was on the scene. These SRG was on the scene. These are strategically trained officers, as also can perform EMT.
Guy behind me, he went on camera, he was talking about it. He was coming out of the building, and he said people were driving on the first pure panic. So, I tried to get him on camera. Yeah, guy behind me, he looked like he was in business where he said he was coming out of the building and he felt like there was like a wave of panic behind him, and then he saw people like driving under the fence. He wouldn't go on camera. Turn around now! He's talking to a friend that works across the street, I guess. Oh, sorry. It sounded like and he was leaving.
I'm gonna have to fast forward. Let's.
Yeah, I'm gonna get long guns are coming through. Let me get them. Long guns, right? More long guns on the.
This is so tragic because imagine going to work and this happens and you can't even leave the premises because they have the whole place contained.
Uh-oh. More people. Right. You breathe and only. I don't know if he was the one. I think he was just heat. I think the cop that got shot died. He didn't look like that. They said it. Sounds like it. Oh, right. All right.
All right, I'm gonna check the chat and see what the chat is saying right now. Let's take a look and see what the chat is saying right now, because this was definitely an active scene. Police officers arrived in good time. Let's just see what the chat is saying. Somebody has to guard the park. Mm-mm. Somebody has to guard the park. This is what happened when you don't allow people to defend themselves. Give us the right to defend ourselves and the Second Amendment right to carry arms. This type of stuff will stop 100% guaranteed. It just sounds like it's going to be a war going on outside. Everyone's going to be armed and everyone's going to just be pulling out on each other, and there'll be a lot of casualties in the process. Someone else says, is everything fine now, or is there any other suspect that is armed? No, there's no other suspect. They thought there was a suspect at first. It was like multiple shooters, but they eventually figured out it was just that one shooter that walked into the building, and he committed suicide. He offed himself. So that's where we're at right now. It's okay. That's a strict no gun zone. I've seen reports 6 people shot. I saw that report too. 6 people shot plus a cop was wounded, and the shooter ended himself. We need to find out the motive exactly. And again, this guy was on the 33rd floor at 345 Park Avenue and 52nd Street, and I'm well familiar with that area. It's a pretty safe area for well, it was known to be a safe area at some point, you know. Um, and I heard the guy walked in like he was playing GTA, gun in hand, and I don't know, but we need to find out more about this story as it unfolds. Um, let's go back to the video, guys. Let's go back to the video. Okay, let's see. I'll mute myself. Guys. All right, guys, we're gonna have to hit it. Panel here. Okay. The officer is in the hospital at Barnaby's, I believe, Barnabas Hospital. and we don't know his condition right now, but the what happened when you don't allow people to defend themselves. I'm just gonna read some comments for you guys. We're back. We're back. I just want to read some of the comments, show you guys some of the comments. This is what happened when you don't allow people to defend themselves. Give the U.S. the right to defend ourselves and the Second Amendment right to carry arms. This type of stuff will stop 100% guaranteed. That's what one person had to say. Then we have so far 2 shot, officer wounded, and the shooter ended himself. That's the story. We just need to find out what the motive is. We don't know what kind of man he was. He did look like a lighter dark skinned man. Someone said Middle Eastern likely, but we don't know. Again, this guy was at 345 Park Avenue shooting. He shot an officer right on the first floor. This officer was off duty, but he was working as a security guard at the building. But the shooter walked in with gun in hand and shot the officer. Officer's now in the hospital. Shooter went straight to the 33rd floor. I don't know what's on the 33rd floor. BlackRock, NFL, KPMG. I don't know for sure where he was at, but they did confirm that he offed himself. So the suspect is no longer like an issue on the scene. They do have the scene contained because they want to make sure it's secure before they let anyone in or out of the building. And we do have a couple of people shot there. Everyone's at the hospital right now. We just need to find out the motive.
Right.
Imagine you working downtown. I used to work downtown, you know, and being on the 33rd floor and someone walks in with a gun and they just start shooting. Oh my gosh. They had to let people down the emergency staircase. They had to go down the stairs, you know. Police let them evacuate. But imagine going to work and not knowing what's going to happen next because there's a live shooter. Like, we don't even know what happened. Did this guy work there? Did he have some type of business there? Did he lose money there? You know, you never know nowadays with people. So this is what we need to find out. Who is this guy? What's his name? Where did he come from? What was on his mind when he decided to walk into this building and hurt people and then hurt himself, off himself? This is what I'm talking about. You're never safe in New York City. And we have to thank the responders for responding in the time that they did, because I know that they have cameras everywhere and they can see everything almost like CCTV in China. So kudos to the responders that responded on the scene right away. Again, this is for 345 Park Avenue, between 52nd, 53rd Street area. And the suspect has been detained. At least he outed himself.
All right.
This was at 3:45 p.m. The shooter walks into the building, and you'll get a chance to see what he looks like. I don't know, you guys probably had a chance to see on other news channels by now, but he walked right into the building, gun in hand. Okay, it looks like a machine gun. I don't know guns. It looked like a machine gun. Okay, AK type of, I don't know, machine gun, right? He walks in 3:45, and you don't get off work till 5. This is crazy, and they're making people go back to the office. This is wild. Nobody's safe in this city. So we're back. I'm gonna have to revert and look for more news information because this is unfolding news for New York City. Like, it's always some type of drama here, you know? I just don't understand when.
Which you're allowed to do under the auspices of New York City.
Oh my goodness.
Which you're allowed to do under the auspices of the New York City Police Department. That's the information we have right now. We don't know motive yet. That'll be determined in the coming hours. And right now, whatever buildings are on that 33rd floor, whatever corporate entities are there, is probably where he's going. So right now, you have to keep everybody safe at this point. Get them out of the building and create a crime scene.
Chief, I'm curious, as they work through, it's a clear shot from the surveillance picture that we were able to see. How quickly are the teams able to track who this person is and then try to get some information about, is he only working alone, or is there a possible another threat that may be lurking?
Mike, it's a strong point. It looks like a lone wolf, as we call them right now, but you don't know. So you build out in concentric circles into his life once he's ID'd. And that's what you're doing right now. Now that gun he walked in with has a serial number. They've done a lot of times, we're able to trace that back and get a name if he doesn't have ID on him. So that's important to understand as well.
And Bob, can you break down, as we're looking at this video, you know, we saw a picture of the suspect, and of course they're trying to figure out, how did the suspect get there? Did he get there on a car? Did he take the subway? You know, what was his mode of transportation? Try to backtrack. Can you walk us through with how police would try to figure out who this guy is and how this all started?
Yeah, so we don't know right now. We're trying to figure out now. He walked into the building with a gun, readily apparent to everybody. So there's security downstairs. So we're not exactly clear how he got into that building and where he came from at this point. Now we'll work out from there exactly, you know, how he got there. There's no car there. He probably took a subway there. Was the gun hidden at that time? So detectives will go back at that point and check every path that he made there on video, and we'll track him exactly where he came from. And we do that almost every day in New York City. So that's what they're doing right now. Again, a lot of people there. It seems to be contained at this point. But, you know, like I said, all prayers for the victims.
Absolutely. We echo that. And Chief, to your point, the NYPD Commissioner, Tisch, just sent out an update and basically reiterating what you were saying, which is at this time, the scene has been contained and the lone shooter has been neutralized. So that appears to at least wrap up that portion of what was a search. But now you have to go in and clear that whole office building as these terrified employees are still waiting for word that they can leave safely.
Right. And you also have to figure out exactly what was this person's motive. You know, it has all been contained at this point. Again, you know, we just heard from the NYPD Commissioner, Jessica Tisch, saying that the lone shooter has been neutralized. We're looking at some other video of people walking out with their hands up, and that was certainly before they realized that the shooter was the lone gunman here and that there was no longer a threat. But at that time, Chief Boyce, if you can just take a look at this video that's coming through and walk us through what police are actually telling everyone, you know, that they have to stand down. We don't know what the situation is. We don't know if there's another shooter.
Yeah, so I can't see the images right now. I'm in my car, actually. I pulled over. But like Rich Frankel said earlier, you don't know until you find the motive. And that usually comes last, once you identify the individual, and then you work back from there. First thing is to contain it, end it, which it is. And now detectives and other personnel will start working back exactly how he got in there, what his beef was with someone in the building, obviously. There's a lot of corporate entities in that building. So that's to be determined as well. What I'm curious right now is, what is on the 33rd floor? Was that his target? And what corporations are up there on the 33rd floor right now?
No, important points to figure out as detectives and investigators are doing just that. Bob Boyce, always appreciate your perspective on these situations. We thank you.
Yeah, and now we want to thank you so much, Chief. Now we want to go out to Josh Einiger, who is there on the scene. And Josh, I know you've been talking to some people. You talked to the boyfriend of a girlfriend who's actually still in the building. Is there an update with that?
Yeah, and I've also been speaking over text with an employee who works in that building, a friend of mine who's been sheltered in place on one of the floors inside that building also. Everyone, of course, is a bit relieved to hear that the police commissioner has now tweeted out that the situation has been neutralized. It's under control. They don't believe there's any more violence coming. And I will tell you that from this vantage point where we are, Sade, at 51st and 3rd, the pace of arrivals of law enforcement has slowed down. It was the type of thing that in maybe 20 years covering news in New York, I have not seen such a response this often. It's very unusual to see police responding with the urgency that they have been here today. Things have somewhat calmed down. I will also point out, we're actually standing in front of the 17th Police Precinct here at the NYPD, which is just around the corner from the scene. So they were on the scene extraordinarily quickly, and by many accounts, they were able to flood here from all across the city to handle this situation. They trained for religiously, but fortunately have not had to really go to that training and have actual real life examples all that often in New York City, at least in recent memory, which is a good thing. But of course, here we are, and another police car heading in here at this point. But a very, very fluid situation and very disturbing situation. We've heard reports from that woman who was speaking over text with her husband that she actually witnessed someone getting shot. The individual I've been speaking to knows a person who, when this all started, had gotten off the elevator on the lobby and believed that person saw 2 or 3 shooting victims. And we're hearing that the police officer who was shot was actually working a private security detail in uniform, sort of moonlighting, if you will. It's a process that happens all the time. It's very much legal and it happens a lot. And had been providing private security for that building and was shot directly by the shooter as he entered the lobby of 345 Park Avenue. So, what was this about? Was it targeting that building, whatever's up on the 33rd floor, or was it something on the street that he had run in to escape or to try to hide? All of that is going to be part of this very extensive investigation. But the good news, which I think everyone would agree is good news, is that the shooter, who the police say is the only shooter, has been found and is no longer alive. And the situation, the emergency, has now entered a new phase where they can work to evacuate all the people who've been holed up and terrified in that building, reunite them with their families, and then figure out who's been injured, and then really get the investigation underway as they work to figure out what this is all about. Sade and Mike.
All right, Josh Einiger, we appreciate it. As we're now just past the top of the hour, just to reset, Josh, hang tight. We're in the Eyewitness Newsroom bringing you breaking news coverage of a shooting that has happened in Midtown Manhattan. This was just before 6:30 when a guy was captured on surveillance cameras carrying a long gun, walked into 345 Park Avenue after shooting at least one officer and one civilian. Both of those victims were taken to the hospital. And then inside that building, a short time later, officers discovered the accused shooter, or the alleged shooter, dead by suicide on the 33rd floor.
And then we did learn from the NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch in the last, 15 minutes or so, that the situation is contained. Again, that suspect apparently committing suicide on the 33rd floor. We do not know how the officer is doing at this point. Again, he was off duty at the time. Another civilian was also shot, but again, we don't know their condition. We do have Sonia Rincon, who is at Weill Cornell Hospital. And right now you're looking at a picture of the suspect. Josh, we want to go back to you there on the scene. With all of this large police presence, I'm sure knowing that the situation is now contained, temperatures have come down a bit.
Yeah, I mean, Sade, I think it's very clear things have dialed back a little bit in terms of the urgency of the response. We don't hear the sirens anymore. Any assets that were not already here, and believe me, this is a huge police department. They still have assets that are not here, have presumably been told to stop coming because the situation is now, thankfully, under control. But if we come this way, we could sort of peek around this way, Matt, and you could sort of see down the block. The only cops who are down there here, even the police officers who are, wearing bulletproof vests who are here manning this checkpoint, they were not allowed down there because they weren't wearing that heavy gear that we see a lot of these tactical police officers wear. And the NYPD has a huge number of cops who are specially trained to respond to a situation like this, starting with their emergency service unit and then down to other units as well that are trained in heavy weapons. Yes. And you see them all around the city on a regular basis. They train for this. They have high visibility throughout the city, and they are close at hand in the event something like this happens. And again, Sade and Mike, as I said earlier, I can't remember a situation like this in the recent past.
Look at this guy. He looks like a black guy, light skin black, or he could look a little bit Middle Eastern. The type of clothes he's wearing looks like he could work in any one of these offices, because nowadays you can what's that, corporate casual or something like that, business casual type of look. So he has the collared shirt on, but he has a machine gun in his hand. Do you see that? And he's walking in so casually, like he's about to step into a GTA game. Like,
about those same people that you're talking about. According to the police, they're telling everyone, even though the threat has been resolved, that everyone should continue to shelter in place and only leave the building with a police escort. So that right. is some of the new information that is coming out.
These are the type of drills they do not prepare you for, but I'm pretty sure they're going to start implementing this in all the corporate buildings, a drill on active shooters, because it seems like this is something that happens at least once every couple of months or once a year. And the sad part about all of this is the person commits suicide at the end of all of this. Like, they did all of this harm to off themselves. Like, what kind of message are they trying to convey? What kind of anger did they have unresolved that caused them to react in such a heinous way?
With no walls, right? So there's really nowhere to go if you're going to try to shelter in place. And that's the person that I've been speaking to who works in that building. And another, I'll say this is these vehicles, they say SRG on the back. This is it's called the Strategic Response Group. It's another one of those units, the NYPD, that are especially trained to use heavy weapons. They're going.
Did you hear that? They have a SRG team for the EMT, which is very important, because when you have a situation like this, you can't just send any EMT workers to the response, because the area is not deemed safe. And you're going to need to make sure there's clearance for the EMT people, because you don't want them getting hurt trying to save other people's lives. So they have a SRG team, which means Strategic Response Group, where they're also trained on firearms and how to conduct themselves in a situation like this so that they do not get harmed themselves. They can fire back. They can protect themselves. They're equipped to respond to the emergency at the scene and also adhere to the madness that's going on with an active shooter. Imagine being trapped in the building and you can't even leave. You done put in your 8 hours and it's time to go, and now you don't even know what's going on and you just want to make it out safe to your family. This is a mess. With all this back to work in the office situation going on, This is not a safe city.
In your area, Josh, but the officer was taken to Weill Cornell. And again, we just don't know the condition of the officer or the civilians who were injured. We know Mayor Adams is on the scene. In fact, we saw him wearing a bullet-resistant vest in the height of this search for the shooter. This is the video here that we're showing you, just to give you an indication of the level of threat, or at least the environment that they were entering, or the mayor was around. And Josh, you can talk to that, because as we now...
You notice the mayor, right? Look at Mayor Adams. He looking around left and right. He looking at all his 12, 3, 6, and 9. He looking at all of them. He looking around, making sure he's alert. Like, you know, he don't know where that gunman coming from.
Can you just walk us through, have you seen other people trying to make contact with the people inside 345 Park?
There are a lot of people standing around here on phones, kind of waiting, speaking with people. It's been hard to tell exactly who's waiting for whom, but a lot of people who've been kind of loitering around here for quite some time, as if they're waiting for somebody. We spoke, as you said, to that gentleman, Donovan, whose wife was in the building trying to shelter in place as well. You know, yeah, this is real. This is real, Mike.
This is real.
This is the kind of thing that we see all across the country on a regular basis. And it's something that we have magically been able to...
I don't know if you guys heard about this, but apparently the shooter, they were able to trace the vehicle that he came from, and his vehicle license plates was from Nevada. And I don't know if you heard earlier, but there was some crazy things happening in Nevada early. I think there was some stabbings, some shootings. I'm not sure, but we can definitely look into that. Somebody will have to look into that.
NYPD has such a huge presence with long guns that is seen in large part as a deterrent. But you know, it's something that people have experienced all across the country, and some people drill for, and perhaps everybody should drill for, because you know, here we are. So again, as Sade pointed out, I'll just say, as Sade pointed out, people have been advised to stay in place. They're letting the police officers methodically clear these buildings. They want to make sure there are no surprises, because while everything may appear that things are under control, and they've said they believe things are under control, the one thing we do know from these situations writ large is
better safe than sorry. That's all I have to say.
Until it's done.
Yeah.
And we're still in the middle of this incident.
Yeah, and it looks like this is going to go on for quite some time. Josh, please stand by. Thank you so much. Let's listen to Rich Frankel right now, the former special FBI agent. And Rich, thank you for staying on with us. And Rich, talk us through this process right now. As we heard from Josh, they're on the scene, that they are not allowing the employees to leave at this point unless there's a police escort.
Yeah, they're doing that for two reasons. One reason is safety. You know, they want to make sure that when the people leave, that they're safe and secure, that somebody's guiding them out, and that they get them away from the building in the most efficient and effective manner. But the other reason is just in case there is somebody who is working with the shooter. If there's either somebody who is aiding him, was waiting for him to do things, and then was going to do basically a secondary attack, or any other connection to him, they want to be able to check each person as they escort them out. They're going to be asking for ID. They're going to make sure that they actually work in the building and that other people know them, and then they'll bring them out. Because again, if there's somebody there that is just there for the day, that person is going to get a lot more scrutiny, because they're going to make sure that any visitor, any individual who doesn't belong there is not associated with this shooter.
All right, former special agent in charge of the FBI, Rich Frankel, stand by if you would. We want to go to ABC News correspondent Aaron Katersky. And Aaron, you've been breaking the details on this story. What do we know? Where are we in this investigation right now?
Oh, right now we know that the shooter appears to have died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound on the 33rd floor of 345 Park Avenue, but that's about the only confirmed information that we've been able to have. I've heard a number of different things, Mike, about numbers. Right now we believe that at least one off-duty NYPD officer was shot and taken to the hospital. I'm fearing the worst for this particular off-duty officer. We'll see. Hopefully he can make it through. We've also heard that there's at least one, possibly two civilians that were shot. and they are still going through the upper floors of the building to see if anybody was shot inside the building. The shooter was found dead on the 33rd floor, so there is still a lockdown, I'm told, on some of the upper floors as police work to clear the building fully.
Aaron, we've mentioned at least two companies that we know are inside that building, that office building, Blackstone, and then, of course, a higher profile company of the NFL. Do we have any indication at this point if they are in some way involved with the motivation behind this shooting that happened?
We do not know yet, but it's a fair question, and I'm sure that's something that the police are starting to look at. They'll try to pull fingerprints off the gun. They'll try to see if there's a serial number to see if that leads them anywhere. Hopefully, they'll get a name of the shooter confirmed to see if there's any connection to a particular company or a particular individual who works in 345 Park Avenue. But that's going to be one of the immediate questions, given the high-profile nature of both the National Football League and Blackstone.
Yeah. And Aaron, you know, I'm also thinking about this long gun, not a small gun to conceal. Has there been, you know, any leads in terms of just discussion about this gun and, you know, was he on the subway? Why wasn't it noticed? Anything?
Yeah, and it's no apparent effort to conceal it, at least as he strode into the building, from what we know, Sade, and how he was able to wield that gun to get inside past security. Was he shooting his way in? Did he just brandish it? Was he threatening? You know, was he going with purpose? Was he fleeing something outside? All of those questions, I think, are going to be answered in the coming hours.
Yeah, and that haunting image, and I know you've seen it, Aaron, that snapshot from the surveillance camera at 345 Park Avenue, and you can see the people just going about their business on a Monday evening, seeming to have no idea that this guy was carrying this huge gun walking into this building. Do we know, Aaron, at that time of day and when all of this unfolded, do we know how many employees were in the building or who may be still in the building?
I don't have a specific number, but I know I got calls from friends who were inside wondering what happened, and someone who's still stuck in there. So it was positively terrifying. The person I talked to is on.
So it's been confirmed 6 people died as a result of this tragic day. The 6 people, the gunman shot 6 people. Condolences to the families affected by this.
We'll say that a couple of the upper floors are on lockdown just to be.
Again, this was at 345 Park Avenue in Midtown Manhattan, between 52nd and 53rd Street. The gunman walked into the building, shot an off-duty officer who was working as a security guard, went up to the 33rd floor, shot some more people, and then shot himself.
And then to know that there may have been some kind of a manhunt through the upper floors of a Midtown Manhattan high-rise, you know, especially one that contains such high-profile companies. This is a, you know, it
makes me wonder, did this guy work in the building? Did he have some type of dealing in the building? Did he have money involved in this company that he targeted? You know, what was his story? I'm very curious to find out. I'm sure you all are too.
Actual escort of each person, because we were told that everyone needs to stay in the building unless they are given a police escort. So,
well, we've seen columns of NYPD officers go toward the building to work to clear it, and I'm sure they'll bring people out. But you know, undoubtedly they'll start floor by floor and work to clear. But having the individual believed to be the shooter, right, you know, deceased, I think that does relax the posture a bit.
Yeah, it
Aaron,
certainly does.
Can you take us through, because this is a 3-dimensional scene, if you will, vertically, horizontally throughout those areas, the streets around this building. But when officers arrive, this is something that, of course, clearly the NYPD trains for. But when you're talking about a vertical crime scene now, what was the challenge that they ran into before they discovered this alleged shooter on the 33rd floor?
Well, I'm told the way the information came in was rather scattershot. They did not have a lot of initial information, according to you know, the radio transmissions and the 911 calls. So I don't think the initial responding officers knew a whole lot about what they were responding to, other than a member of service who was shot, and then from there a pursuit inside the building. That means going through every nook and cranny in theory, but maybe they had a beat on where he was. Maybe they, were able to, take an elevator to an immediate location. That, of course, poses its own risks. So it's a harrowing, initial scene until you find the suspect dead.
Okay, Aaron Katursky, thank you so much. Please stand by with any new information. And right now we want to go back to the scene with Josh Einiger. Josh, anything happening there now? Because we just heard from Aaron that some of the officers are actually escorting some of the people out of the building. Are you seeing that from where you are?
So Sade, we've had a lot of people. In fact, let's look right here. We had for a long period of time, this endless flow of police rushing in there. Now you see people emerging on foot, almost all of them with phones pressed to their ears, almost none of them willing to speak about the experience that they've been through. They are seemingly very slowly evacuating people from that building, 345 Park Avenue. Although I've been speaking to somebody on a lower floor of that building who has heard nothing yet, except for voices on loudspeakers, like emergency alarm systems throughout the building, telling them to wait for police, to wait for cops, and to stay in place. And so most people in that building are. And you have to imagine, Sade, there are thousands of people who work in that building. We've seen a trickle of people coming out, and all very, very rattled, very, very rattled. It's to a person, they look nervous and rattled and exhausted. And I tried to talk to maybe a dozen people, and they all were like, yeah, I'm not ready to talk about what we just went through, which is a sign right there of how traumatic this has been, because people often do want to explain what they just went through, but this has been profoundly disturbing for people. Holed up there for more than an hour. Individual that I'm speaking to said he actually heard nothing on loudspeakers inside that building. So all they really had was social media, what I guess news they were able to consume, huddled together on these floors where there's actually very little privacy in modern office spaces. And so that's kind of their existence. If we take a step back, I'll show you, maybe we could zoom down again, Matt, just a little bit. I know it's hard because we're not on a tripod, so it's a little shaky to go down there, but a very large contingent of law enforcement still, obviously, and they're going to be here for hours. We are about a block and a half from the scene. We're really 2 blocks east and 1 block south.
Thank goodness the situation has been contained. Unfortunately, 6 people lost their lives as a result of this. We're going to jump right into another scene where someone has a witness is going to give their take on the story.
Shad, you were just a couple blocks from what should happen, and you said you were in shelter in place for how long?
For about 2.5, 3 hours. We were stuck in there. They told us to stay put. They told us that there was something happening outside and it's not safe to be out there. So we just tried to stay put and do what we can. Yeah.
And to know that shooting happened right there next door.
I walk that way. I walk that way all the time. I get lunch there. I sit there. I have a lot of friends that work around here. So it's just crazy to hear something is happening so close to you. You hear about it on the news, but then when it's right there, it's crazy.
And what's going through your mind? You said you have a whole bunch of friends that work here in this area. What was the sentiment when you talked to them about what was going on? Were they responsive?
No, I mean, as soon as I realized that, because it took me a second to realize, wait a minute, I have other people here too. And so I started calling people up. Thankfully, they were okay. Some people didn't come in today, which is great. But no, I mean, it was just straight panic, as soon as I heard it.
And what, you said 3 hours. What's going through your mind when you're in there and you're watching everything unfold?
Yeah, I mean, we weren't getting much news or information at all, as far as from the company. I mean, obviously, we're just kind of there. Staying put and trying to hear what's happening, but I did hear from friends and I heard.
Isn't it unfortunate? You get up, you go to work, you do your part, and the middle of all of this chaos, you don't even know what's going on. There's no loudspeaker, nothing that's just going to alert you to what's going on, that there's an active shooter in your own building. You need to evacuate. But then how can you evacuate when they have this whole building contained? and you don't know what's happening. You don't know what's going on. You're just told you can't leave. Now, thank goodness that they have hybrid days. Some people don't go into work. But how about the days when you are in the office? Like, you're going to have this anxiety, this stress on your mind because this is what's going on. This is what's going on. This guy looks like a regular worker. Look at this.
That on online and seeing that person with a gun walking right through it too, it just puts it into perspective. You don't know what's going to happen to you. You're not going to like, you think it's not going to happen to you, and then it does, right?
Exactly.
Nothing like you would have expected, I'm sure, right outside of where you were.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't. I would never expect that. Again, like, this is a regular thing walking through here. To hear someone just walk right through with a gun, it's just puts things into perspective. You know, it's you got to be safe. You got to stay safe out there.
Thank you for making time.
Yeah, guys. So this is what we're gonna go back to the original video and see what's going on that end. But the situation is definitely contained at this point.
Terrible news for his family. Josh.
Tells you, Sade, the sacrifice that they go through every day. They go to work, they put on a uniform, and they say goodbye to their family, and then they may or may not come home. It's a very, very dangerous job to be in law enforcement. In this particular case, we know this officer was actually working off duty. This is something that a lot of officers do. They're allowed by the city to do so. He's working sort of as private security for the landlord of this building, working in uniform, by the way, which makes him every bit a police officer as he would have been if he had been on duty, because the shooter didn't know the difference, saw a police officer in uniform and opened fire. And now we're hearing this awful news that this police officer paid the ultimate sacrifice.
Wow. So even when the officer is working off duty for the NYPD, he's working as a security guard for the building at 345 Park Avenue. He still is in uniform. And guess what? That automatically made him a target, because that's the shooter shot him. And so that was like a target, like eliminate and keep going, because his ultimate target was the 33rd floor. So this is so tragic, guys. The officer, I believe, is unalived at this point. So my condolences to the family. This is very
sacrifice, as sadly so many before him have done. The NYPD has lost many in the line of duty, in many cases because shooters target them specifically because they are police officers. The details of this, of course, are very, very fresh. We have not heard the specific kind of timeline, if you will, of how this all went down. We've heard that the shooter entered this building, encountered.
I'm concerned. Why did these two guys in the back just take this opportunity as a photo op? I mean, I'm concerned. What kind of city are we living in? Do they not know this is the middle of an active shooting? Like, this is not a safe area, and they're smiling, giving kudos, peace signs.
This police officer who was working security for the building and then fired on the police officer. And we had been hearing all throughout that the police officer was in very, very grave condition, rushed to Weill Cornell on the Upper East Side. But, Sade, you're now saying, and ABC News is now hearing that the officer very sadly did not survive. So that adds really a whole new dimension to what has already been a horrific and tragic day in the middle of Midtown, middle of rush hour, people just trying to get on with their lives. And they all were witness to, and many were victims of an active shooter in New York City.
Josh Heininger there on the scene. Stand by as you have been all night. And again, if you're just now joining us, ABC News now reporting that the NYPD officer who is working off duty as a security guard at 345 Park Avenue, an office building at 52nd and Park Avenue, has died from his injuries after being rushed to Weill Cornell Hospital. Heartbreaking news for New York City tonight. I do want to reiterate that Mayor Adams has been on the scene for quite some time now, as we're now entering almost the third hour of what's been unfolding there. And Mayor Adams spoke to us just a moment ago, and here's what he said.
New York, this has Mayor Eric Adams, and I'm here at the scene of 51st and Park Avenue. Unfortunately, we had a shooting here with multiple injuries. The perpetrator, the known perpetrator, is neutralized at this time. Those who are in the building, we're asking you to remain inside as police officers are doing a floor-by-floor search. We believe, again, the perpetrator is neutralized at this time. We're going over to the hospital to speak with family and loved ones involved in this incident. We did have a shooter with multiple injuries at this time, but the perpetrator is neutralized.
So as you can see, that was a statement actually that was posted on X from Mayor Adams, describing the scene as he knew it to be at that moment, where the officers are now going floor by floor of this huge office building at 345 Park Avenue, trying to escort the people who were told to shelter in place as this shooting started about 2 hours ago. We also understand that the deputy director of the FBI says that the FBI will be assisting in this investigation. We know the field office sending personnel and agents to the scene as this scene and the investigation, and as Josh just mentioned a moment ago, continues to grow with all of the detectives that are now going to be necessary to try to put together exactly how all of this unfolded. I want to go back to retired special agent of the FBI, Rich Frankel, an ABC News contributor. And so now, you know, Rich, when we talk about the news that we just reported that this officer has been killed, you know, the heavy hearts throughout the city, but of course these officers that are still there doing their job. When you see the image of this person, this alleged shooter, walk into this building, what does that tell you about, as we try to figure out exactly who he was, why he did what he did? But what does that tell you about walking in with that long gun just before 6:30 on a Monday evening in the middle of Midtown as people are milling about there, and walk in and do what he's accused of doing?
You know, it's so unlikely and improbable that you would think it never happened. You know, you see that picture. Listen, I walk in that area. I've been in that area many a time. I would, looking up, it may not even register that the guy has that gun the way he's carrying it, you know, by his side, without actually looking at it. But once you see that, it would send you into shock, because again, you don't see long guns in New York City. In fact, when you see a police officer carrying a long gun, you actually think it's kind of odd. That's how unusual it is for this type of weapon to be in New York City. So for him to have brought it in,
I'm not even gonna lie. I be seeing the guys in uniform on Grand Central, the military. They have those guns. They stand outside with those type of guns. So let's not take it that far. We do see people in the city, even though they are officials. They do run the city with those type of firearms. 34th Street, 42nd, you know, those type of areas. Yes.
Car. Did he come from you know, a hired car? Did he come out of the subway? Was it in a bag and he pulled it out of the bag? Was he always dressed like this? Did he change?
See, now y'all need to get your stories right, because I heard earlier that you guys had the license plate and it was Nevada, but we have to keep digging into this story because it's just unfolding.
Cameras to go back and identify where the shooter came from. They're going to be doing that in this case. They're going to be going back through all those videos and hopefully to where he came from, and identify, you know, what exactly happened, you know, as it led up to the shooting.
And Rich, I got to ask you, you're a part of law enforcement. What has this situation meant to you? And now knowing that this officer is now dead?
Heartbreaking. I mean, I just found out about it when you guys found out about it. And, you know, literally my heart kind of fell a little bit at that time. I know hundreds of cops. I'm friends with, you know, tens, if not 100 cops. Just thinking that this could have been one of my pals, you know, doing just some extra duty, you know, making a little bit of extra money to help the family, to pay for school, to pay for whatever. And this is what happens when a cop does that. It's heart-wrenching. I just, you know, I just keep sitting here thinking, you know, could it have been somebody I know? Could it have been
You never
one of my
know.
son's friends? You know, one of my kids' friends
You never
who are
know.
now cops.
Could
I mean,
be.
this is just it just keeps going through my mind. The only thing that is making me, and I'm sure the cops go forward, is that, okay, now we have to find out everything we can about this guy. We've got to find out his motive. We've got to find out, is he connected to anyone? Was he radicalized by anyone? If it was in the name of terrorism, was it just him being an active shooter? Until we find that out, the drive is there to find the motive and find the why.
Exactly.
Well, Rich, I mean, you mentioned the motive as they're trying to figure out exactly how this happened, why this happened. You mentioned terror, whether or not it's actual terror by the definition we use today. I can tell you from the video that we're seeing on our screen right now of the people who were inside that office building and were finally able to be let go and out to safety. You can see them exhaling, and the relief that was on their face getting out of that situation as all of this unfolded. Rich, hang tight. Let's go back to Josh Heidegger. Josh, what can you tell us? Josh?
Josh?
Come on, Josh.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
go
can.
ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Hear you, Josh.
Okay. So I'm here with Joe, who just spent the last 2 horrifying hours on the 10th floor. Why don't you just tell me, if you could, what this experience, how did it start? What's it been like?
Well, we just heard noises and then we all just were in a closet, really. That was it. It was quite quiet and uneventful. Just, then we left, and it was after some time, but it felt like forever, but thank heavens everything was okay.
You said you heard noises. What did you hear?
Just kind of people shouting, get shelter in place, that kind of thing. We heard over intercom announcements and things like that, but that was it, and that's it.
What kind of things were they saying on the?
Just shelter in place. Just shelter in place. There's an investigation, that kind of thing. So to keep everyone calm, but we're all just there, and then we were sheltering in sort of a back area, and we just were there, and for 2 hours till they told us to leave, and that was it.
And were you able to understand what was going on?
Not really, but we knew something bad was happening. We heard the choppers, we heard all the sirens. It was crazy. So, and then of course, everyone was on their phones following along. Like you guys were telling us more than the media. Telling us more than what we wrote about that. So,
at some point, I guess it must have been. There was a period before it got out that the shooter had been found dead. That you must not have known what was going on.
Yeah, we didn't really know. We couldn't. Who knows? There's all sorts of crazy reports. We didn't know who to believe, right? So, but thankfully, it's all over now.
There's a lot has been said about the psychology of what was going on up there, and the lack of information, the lack of announcements. What do you think in a moment like that as this is going on?
You just hope that somebody who's in charge has an idea of what to do, and knows what to do, I guess.
So I'm glad you're okay. Do you have family that you've been talking to?
Oh yeah, and so I'm glad I'm okay. So
you haven't had really a lot of time to process all this, but when you think about what you've been through, like what goes through your head?
You're just thankful that you weren't that close to it, I guess. Everyone's a degree of distance away from it, and some are closer than others, but thankfully I wasn't close enough to be hurt.
Joe, thank you.
Thank you so
very
much.
I'm glad you're okay.
Thanks a lot.
All the best to you. Thank you so much. So there's one person, the first individual we've been able to speak to who was in that building. He was on the 10th floor, which was fairly far away as far as we know so far to where the shooter was when he was in that building. But of course, there was a period of time before it was clear the shooter was dead that no one in that building knew who was what was up and what was down, and if they were in danger, and if so, how much. And it turns out people were in grave danger, and a lot of people had really tragic experiences. And there are at least 3 people we know of who have been shot and killed today, including a New York City police officer. So really an awful experience for a lot of people. We see them trickling out. It seems that the police are very slowly trying to clear people out of that building. They've urged workers of that building to continue sheltering in place so they can bring them out in an orderly way and try to have some control now that they have control, so they don't lose control of the situation that they've worked so hard to bring under control. Mike and Sade.
Yeah, Josh, this is just such a heartbreaking scene right now. Again, as you mentioned, there are now 3 victims. So that police officer was not the only victim in this shooting. There were 2 other civilians that we know of right now. You know, we did hear from the mayor earlier saying that there were multiple victims. So exactly how many were injured, how many were shot, we don't know for sure, but we do know that there are now 3 victims, 3 people who have now lost their life because of this shooting.
And at least one person who was shot is an employee or was an employee of the building working as an accountant. At this point, we mentioned the search is no longer underway for the accused shooter because he was found on the 33rd floor of what appears to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. But I can tell you that police are looking for a vehicle with Nevada license plates. So they're looking for a vehicle with Nevada license plates. As they try
I
to
was
piece together,
right,
Sade,
Nevada.
exactly how all of this happened.
Yeah, it's
And Rincon, we mentioned the officer who died,
Right.
and he was taken and rushed to Weill Cornell, and that's where
man,
family and friends
officers.
are. We heard from Mayor Adams on a social media post just moments ago that he was headed to the hospital to pay his respects. And Sonia, I can only imagine, we're feeling the heavy hearts here, you know, in downtown, with just all the people now focusing on this story that's unfolding. What have you been able to learn at the hospital where you are?
Well, Mike, we've seen dozens of police officers here and more arriving. There are several dozen just in front of the hospital's main entrance and in the lobby. And there are officials here with the Deputy Commissioner for Public Information's office setting up a news conference where we do expect to hear from the mayor. We have not seen the mayor arrive, but we've seen members of his team, members of the mayor's office for communications, helping to set up that press conference where we expect to hear from the mayor. And this is Weill Cornell, New York Presbyterian Weill Cornell Hospital on East 68th Street. This is where that officer was taken and where that officer was pronounced dead tonight. We know that that officer was working security detail, which is very typical, and this is why private companies hire NYPD officers for security detail, because of their training, because they protect the public, and because they know what to do in a dangerous situation. And this officer was protecting the public and the employees of that building. What we do know was that the officer was hired, was working for the owner of the building, which is Rudin Properties, providing increased security, and that the officer would normally have been working in the 47th precinct, the 47 in the Bronx. That's in the northeast Bronx, Williamsbridge, Woodlawn, and Olinville, Edenwald, that part of the Bronx, and that is where he normally worked. But today he happened to be working a private security detail for the owner of that building, 345 Park Avenue, and he was taken here to this hospital, New York Presbyterian Weill Cornell, where he was pronounced dead. We do not believe that any of the other injured victims were taken here. We know that at least one was taken to Bellevue Hospital, but the officer was taken here. And this is normally where the mayor and police commissioner, anytime a law enforcement officer or a firefighter is injured on the job, normally the mayor and police commissioner would come to the hospital and provide an update on that officer's condition, or provide an update on what led to it and the investigation, as much as they can share with the public. And that is what we are expecting to happen this evening. We can see that officials from the mayor's office and from the police department are setting that up right now. And we do expect to hear more at this location where that officer was pronounced dead tonight. Mike and Sade.
Yes, Sonia, you mentioned how the mayor is supposed to be coming to the hospital. I'm just curious, who's showing up at the hospital right now? Have you been able to see or talk to anyone?
Yeah, we've been trying to talk to some of the officials with the police department who are setting up that news conference, and it looks like they're starting to allow some members of the media to go into the area where we will be setting up to bring you that news conference live as soon as it begins. But we have seen, as I said, dozens of officers, and that is not unusual in a situation like this. As unusual as this situation is, we would expect to see dozens of officers and a massive police presence at the hospital.
Yeah, I can only imagine what that officer's family is going through right now. Our hearts go out to that family. As you have mentioned and Josh has mentioned, these officers put their lives on the line every single day. And unfortunately, this officer put his life on the line today.
And not to minimize any assignment or any sort of situation, because we know that it's all dangerous when you take that oath and when you're in those situations. Sonia, thank you. but he was working off duty as a security guard. And perhaps, maybe for friends and family, you think that's somewhat of more of a relief versus maybe patrolling the streets of the Bronx where, he was stationed at the 47th precinct. But as we know, things can turn dangerous and sadly deadly as they have. This is a picture of the alleged shooter who police found on the 33rd floor, appears to have died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
We now want to take it back out to Rich Frankel, former FBI special agent. And Rich, we were just talking about how this just like hits you right in the gut. And several officers, NYPD officers, they put their lives on the line every single day. And I just can't help but to think of his family, this officer's family. I don't know if he has kids, but still his extended family, they're hurting right now.
Yeah, the problem is, and the good thing is that NYPD has had this happen way too many times, but they also are very good at dealing with something like this. I am sure that they've already got, the NYPD chaplains. They've got his command. They've got his friends that know him from the department. They're already with the family. They're doing what they can to console the family, whether they're meeting him at their homes, whether they're meeting him at the hospital. But they are already in that mode of doing what they can to take care of a member of their family. And while that's going on, you will have the 30,000 other NYPD officers, along with federal law enforcement, along with officers from around the state, around the country, doing what they can to assist in this investigation. If we find that the shooter is from another jurisdiction, they will reach out to that jurisdiction, and I'm sure those police officers will immediately jump to and assist in the investigation. I've been getting calls and texts from other officers from other jurisdictions here in the New York area, asking what I know, and is there anything that can be done? That type of thing. It's happened way too often that we now are very accustomed to being able to respond to it.
And Rich, as the morning is now playing out for so many people, you mentioned the 30,000 of the NYPD, and then of course the FBI is now assisting in the investigation as well. But as we sort of pivot a little bit to the investigation, how important will it be, or what does it tell you, I guess, as an investigator, just initially, that this person was able to walk into this building and seem to kind of know where he was going, or at least know, office buildings are different. We know that, especially in Midtown, they could be a bunch of different configurations. This person, from all the accounts that we're hearing so far, seemed to have some familiarized aspect of this building. What does that tell you at this point?
Yeah, that someone or something was targeted in that building, from what it appears. It could just be a random entrance into a building, but from what we see is that this was a targeted approach to the building.
Exactly.
That when he went in, from what the bystanders are saying, is he immediately started firing. He knew that there were police officers in the building, from what we're learning, and then he went from that position to other positions within the building. Now that's what we don't know. Where did he go exactly? Did he stop on the 3rd floor, the 8th floor? Did he go directly to the 33rd floor? We're going to be learning all about that. And that's going to be, again, from those individuals who have walked out of the building. One of the things that the officers also are doing when they're taking these people out of the building is they're getting their information, because they're going to need witness statements from every single person who has something to offer. When did you start hearing the firing? Was it on your floor? What did you see? When did it stop? Did you hear the elevated ding before it? Did you hear the elevated ding after it? There's going to be all that. So they're going to get that full timeline of where he was going and what he was doing in the building. And like we talked about before, they're going to be going back out. They're going to be looking at the video cameras going all the way back out to see where he came from. Was there a car on the street that he left parked and that he came directly into the building? If so, then he must have known where he was going in New York City. So then we're also going to start looking at the LPRs, the license plate readers, to find out where he was in Manhattan
Mm-hmm.
And then did he come from, one of the outer boroughs? Did he come from Jersey? And they're going to be tracking this all back. Even when they find out where he is originally from and lives, they're still going to want to track back to see, did he have a jump off point? Was this just, like a spur of the moment thing? Or was this where he had a place close by and then got into some type of transportation and got closer and then moved on?
And Rich, let me ask you this. I just want to double down on the idea that there was some familiarity with this building. We've seen all too often that sometimes you'll see that this is a disgruntled worker. If that were the case, again, we don't know what this suspect's motive was, but if this was a disgruntled worker, how would the FBI go about trying to figure that out? Do they go through a list of employees on each floor, Blackstone and NFL. The NFL? Do they go through their roster of people who may have been fired? How do they go about this?
You're exactly right. That's one of the ways that they're going to go about it. They're going to be talking to every single employer in the building, including the owner of the building, and going and asking them to check, do they know this individual? At one point, they're going to have this guy's ID. So they're going to be able to give the ID to the heads of security for all the different companies that are in that building. They're going to, of course, go to Blackstone. They'll go to the NFL, but they'll go to all the other smaller companies and see if there are any connections. And then also, listen, once they put his picture out, somebody will most likely call into NYPD or the FBI and say, I know that individual. And then they'll go about that. Okay, where did he live? Where is he from? Did he, has he changed in the last few days? Did he have any arguments, any beefs with anyone at his place of employment? Was his place of employment, one of the offices in the building, or maybe he worked somewhere else and somehow was connected back to this building? So they're going to be going through all that to find out exactly what his connection is to the building and why he came there.
And it's interesting too, Rich, because we mentioned a moment ago that police officers were still searching for a vehicle with Nevada plates. How that fits into this puzzle, clearly something they're going to be interested in. But I got to believe with all of the resources of the NYPD and certainly now with the FBI infusing their resources as well, they likely know who this guy was. And now they're trying to figure out exactly who he was tied to your point, and all of that. Rich, if you don't mind, hang with us here because we want to go back to Josh Einiger, who's at the scene, as we're learning more. I should mention, Josh, we expect to hear from the mayor and some of the other officials in a little more than an hour at 10 o'clock. Of course, things can fluctuate and change as this situation continues. But Josh, what can you tell us where you are right now?
So, Mike, I can tell you that this scene is still very active as the police work to slowly clear this building, as, of course, you and Rich were talking about. They're doing this, of course, with the knowledge that one of their own went to work today and is not going to go home to his family. A police officer who was hired in part because of his uniform to provide security for this building. And then when the shooter walked in there, of course, immediately fired upon that police officer, no doubt because of the uniform that he was wearing. Some people are shouting in the background. There's actually an unrelated Gaza protest going on right now a few feet away from me. So forgive the background noise right here, who are people who are advocating for a cause that has little to do with what's happening here as far as we know today. We know that there were at least 2 civilians who were.
But do you know? Do you really know? Do you ever really know? You don't know. They shouldn't even let people protest in the middle of all this chaos right now. It should be like, you're obstructing the investigation scene. Like, this is suspect to me. Everything is suspect.
For safety, people who might have had trampling injuries or twisted an ankle or some such thing while they were trying to take cover. So there could very well be more secondary injuries to this whole calamity that has undergone here today. And you can see it's dark now, but there are the sort of features of people walking, kind of emerging from this scene. Some are police officers, but others from time to time are civilians who worked inside that building. We spoke to one individual who was on the 10th floor who said there was almost no information from the building. They understood something was happening. They were told to take cover, and then they took cover for about an hour or 2 hours really, mining social media, mining the news media for information as they waited for word about what was going on. And every word that they got was scarier than the word before, until there finally came a time when the police finally said the situation was under control, that the danger was behind them, and people should still continue to stay remain in place as they wait for police to come and let them go. But so as we wait for word from the police, of course, we're going to hear a lot of information that we do not now have in terms of the dynamics of the timeline of this situation, all these details that we've been waiting to hear. But of course, at the end of the day, we're dealing with a major tragedy in the middle of Midtown.
Who knew on
New
a
York
Monday this would happen?
Killed
Wow.
in the line of duty while in uniform. 2 civilians,
Officer dead.
What was that?
innocent civilians
Man,
killed. An untold number we don't know at this point.
Exactly. Who knew this would happen in the middle of
know,
the daytime on a
as the
Monday?
police emerge from here, we don't know how many people exactly have been
and
injured.
in
We do
Midtown,
know thousands of people were traumatized
after all the
by
stuff
this
that happened
situation.
in
Yes, Mike.
Well,
Vegas,
not to interrupt, but I do,
in the
because
world,
you've spent a number of hours with the NYPD and their special response teams. And from what we're hearing is that this
So what happened in
alleged shooter
Vegas today?
barricaded himself on the 33rd floor, and it was
there was
officers from the
a
critical
shooting
response
similar
command
to
who
this, but
responded to
not
that threat. This is
as
a vertical
quite
crime scene now when you
to
talk
the
about this big
extent.
office building. Can you take us through
But
that sort of operation and
we need to
tactically
pull
what
I
that
wonder
up
if
you were
they're
able
all
to do
and make a
connected.
in
comparison.
relatively a
Yeah,
short amount of time when you talk about the
because
scope of everything that was unfolding?
the suspect had Nevada
Right, so we're going
plates,
to hear a lot of that detail, hopefully,
Understand.
and I heard
when
there's
police
other
and the
people
They
mayor
catch
tied
the
to it.
person in
briefing at the
Vegas?
hospital coming up in the next few minutes, we
Um,
assume.
I
The
don't,
critical
I don't know if
response
they caught him,
command
but I think
is
it
maybe
happened in
better
Vegas. I don't
looked
know if
at
they caught the
actually as the
person
NYPD's counterterrorism.
Interesting.
It's part of the
I mean,
Intelligence
I don't know
something
if
and
they
has to
caught
be
him.
Counterterrorism
connected.
Bureau.
He had
And
license
this is a
plates from
team of police
Nevada.
officers who are specially
I don't
trained
drive, so
in
I don't know. Is
heavy
it
weapons,
easy to
long
drive from
weapons, heavy
Nevada to New
armor,
York?
in
Like you
responding
might
to
do?
these types of active shooter incidents, in addition to active counterterrorism
No,
incidents. And so
Okay.
they would be the
it takes some
people,
So
time, but you can
along
get a
with,
rental car,
and we know they were on scene as well, the Emergency
mm,
Service Unit, which is, of course,
and you
the
never know how
higher
many
level
days or
resource
what head
units
start that
here
they
at the
had.
NYPD. All of them were here.
exactly.
They presumably were
Or if it
pinned
You
was
down
know,
around this
coordinated,
building.
right?
As you mentioned, a
yeah,
vertical
I don't
crime
know if it
scene,
could be a
a high
coinky-dink
rise, of
of
course, extraordinarily complicated
people,
as
you
they
know,
try to find
linking
the
up and
person
doing things on the
who
same
did
day.
this. They use
hmm
surveillance from
I can't believe they
security
let people
cameras throughout this
protest right
building.
outside in the
And
middle
they
of all of
actually,
this
we
is
understand, have
happening. They have like
video of this
Gaza
individual
protesters
turning his weapon on
protesting, and you
himself,
never know if
according to
everything's
police sources
connected, you know?
earlier
It's a
to
crazy world
ABC
right
News. So we do know that this was an
That's the
extraordinarily
fact.
complex, kinetic emergency response, first responders with heavy weapons clearing this scene. They train for this, Mike, and they train all the time for this because, of course, you have civilians all throughout this building as well. So they have to be extraordinarily careful as they encounter people as they're trying to clear a floor, who it is that they might encounter. If there are civilians, they have to get them to safety. We have learned that the shooter had barricaded himself. The details of how that happened, if there was direct engagement with law enforcement before that happened, no doubt all that will come out hopefully in the next few minutes to an hour.
All right, Josh Einiger, we appreciate your reporting. Stand by as we will continue at ABC7.
Tragic
That's right.
day.
And we are about to wrap up our coverage here.
People
And we're going to
shot,
continue our
NYPD
coverage on
officer
ABC7
shot dead.
NY. Again, a shooting in Midtown.
The shooter
It
shot
happened at
himself.
57 and Park Avenue at around
Okay,
6:30.
sounds good.
We know that 3 people were shot. All 3 individuals
All right,
have
we're gonna
now
have to come
died.
back to this
One was
story
a
because
police
there's so much
officer.
unfolding
The other
as we
2
speak.
were
But thank
victims.
you
We know
everyone
that
for
officer
watching.
came from the
We
4-7
actually
precinct in the Bronx region.
We expect to hear from Mayor Adams and some of the other.
So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Again, this story is still unfolding. We're gonna try to come back in about an hour, like by 10:30. We'll try to be back here on live, trying to see what else unfolded, what other news we can find and dig up for you. But again, this shooter unalived himself. It's unfortunately he took 6 people to the hospital, and also shot an NYPD officer who was off duty at the time, but unfortunately he did have on his uniform. And you know, when you're in uniform and as an NYPD officer, you're automatically a target. And so this is very tragic news that happened today at 345 Park Avenue at Midtown, deemed to be one of the safest work zones in the city, but now it's just twisted all around. So now we'll just have to follow up with you guys later. Thank you again for watching. Thanks for joining the panel. Our special guest, Johnny Wap, was here, and we're just gonna have to say thank you to everyone who was watching and who commented on the chat. We'll meet up again in about an hour from now. Thank you again for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to D Lady Diana. Take care. Be safe out there.